Folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. Let's turn this up a little bit. And hey, Jazz, how we doing? I'm Joe
I'm
Mangiacotti.
doing great. How are you today, Joe?
Good, I was taking care of Teddy. Sorry about that, folks. Making sure he was all fed and watered and ready to go. All right, this is the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation simply dialing 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. That's how you join the conversation. And of course, we are on the TuneIn app. So just punch in WCRN and you can take us anywhere. That's right. And hit that like button. Do me a favor and hit that like button. Also, live streaming on my social media. So you can go to Facebook and Twitter, Joe Mangi Show, and then YouTube page and even LinkedIn page. It's all happening. All right. We got a lot to talk about, folks. 508-871-7000 is how you join the conversation. So Joe Biden is we all know he's on the trip, and a couple things interesting have been happening while he's on the trip. And what I'm getting at too here is it seems as though the president of the United States makes a comment or makes a statement that apparently that's what he's thinking, that's what he believes. And doesn't it seem that the White House staff, his administration staff, are continually walking it back, always walking it back. And it makes you wonder then who's actually in charge, what's going on. If they're constantly walking back his statements and changing or telling us what you heard isn't actually what he means, this is what he really meant to say. So first of all, he's a grown man. He should be able to say what it is that he thinks and believes and what his policy is, and that's what it should be. But if they're constantly walking it back and changing it, then who's really in charge? What is the policy? What are we actually following? So on this trip, he had to walk, or the administration had to walk back what he said. White House walks back what Biden says about Taiwan defense claims. For the third time in 9 months, they find themselves on a serious policy, walking it back. 3 times since August of last year, they've had to do this. And during a joint press conference with the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Biden was asked if the U.S. would be prepared to defend Taiwan if such an attack took place. I'm going to play this and see if this actually comes through in your end, Jazz. So let me know. Yeah,
I'm not hearing anything.
I don't see it. Do you have it on your end? The play.
I have all the different clips you wanted me to
All right,
have.
the Biden on the question of Taiwan. So it should be labeled Biden on cue of Taiwan. Let's hear what he had to say on that issue. All right. Well, we try to work that up. Basically, what he said was yes. That's been our
playing,
policy.
Joe.
What's that?
I did have it playing on this end.
Okay, go ahead then. I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it.
Not happened. Not happened.
Are we done?
1 second.
Are we done?
It's just finishing.
I don't hear anything though.
Clip just ended.
All right, folks. So he's sticking to this. Now we have to remember that his own people have said, he's been wrong about foreign policy decisions for the last 4 decades. So you have to wonder, should we follow this or not? But anyway, they immediately, his staff has to walk it back. All right. That's the commitment we made. We agree with the one China policy. We signed on to it. Biden added. Now, all the attached or attended agreements I'm trying to read what he said for quote, but you know how he speaks, made from there. But the idea that can be taken by force, just taken by force, it's just not appropriate. So he's drawn a line in the sand here, and China's not happy with it. Obviously, he's going to have to deal with that. But we have to ask the question, and the media has to ask the question: what is the policy, and who's deciding the policy? As the president said, our policy has not changed. A spokesperson told Fox News this, that he reiterated our one China policy and our commitment to peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. He also reiterated our commitment under the Taiwan Relations Act to provide Taiwan with the military means to defend itself. See, but the one China policy refers to the U.S. position that the communist government in Beijing is the sole legal authority over the Asian nation, and acknowledges, but does not accept, its claim that Taiwan is part of China. So I'm getting confused here, because either you support the one China policy, which according to China means Taiwan is part of China and they have authority over them, but it does not accept its claim that Taiwan is part of China. That's a real cake and, eat it too type of thing, right? Either you agree with China's one China policy or you don't accept it. I'm not quite sure, even in the diplomatic arena, how you can have a dual position like that. Under the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act, the U.S. is not required to militarily defend Taiwan, but is required to ensure Taiwan has the resources to defend itself. Now, that situation sounds vaguely familiar. Maybe like what we're going through with Ukraine at the moment. We're not actually in the fight, but you could argue it's a proxy fight. And we're providing more defense weaponry and money than all other European nations combined. So despite the cleanup, China's foreign ministry hit back at Biden on Monday, today, expressing strong dissatisfaction and a firm opposition to those comments he made. Now, Mark Esper also spoke on this as well, and I'll try again one more time from here to see whether or not I can get it, Jez, but if I don't, the comments I want to play is Mark Esper. Do you have that coming? Do you hear that?
No, it's not coming in.
All right, we'll bypass this, but basically he speaks about the same thing in our obligations there, and it's important that we maintain them, because you have to remember, and this is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, folks, is how much we rely on Taiwan for, of all things, processing chips. A great number of our very important computer chips are made in and come from Taiwan, as well as a lot of components of our defense systems. What's your first thought there, of course? Why are we making such important things outside of the country? Haven't we learned a lesson when it comes to supply chain and having things made within the boundaries of the United States that we can control, that we are in the event that somebody either purposely decides to cut off our source or because of circumstances such as a pandemic that shuts down ships and factories and truck lines and all of that, the infrastructure because of shutdowns and quarantines, et cetera. We know what we're talking about. We just lived through this for several years.
Got about a minute.
And then all of a sudden we don't have extremely important materials or components that we need. Donald Trump talked about this long before the pandemic. This was part of the tariffs on China. This was all part of him making sure factories remained in the United States and returned to the United States, bringing the corporate tax down to 21%. It basically forced corporations to return not only money to the United States, but factories and offices, because they had a fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders to do so. But we have to take a break here at this point on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. So we will do that, 508-871-7000, to join the conversation. Stick with us. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and we'll be back on the other side.
So you want to open up your Facebook Messenger?
Yep.
Dr. Satya Mitra has journeyed from a childhood of poverty and homelessness to a successful career as a financial advisor, motivational speaker, and community leader. Now inspired by his guru, he uses his experiences to positively affect the lives of underprivileged people. We strive to house our blindness, poverty, homelessness, female empowerment, and good citizenship initiatives within the Joy Guru Humanitarian Center. If you wish to contribute or know of deserving persons or initiatives that could use our assistance, please contact us at 508-641-8441.
Today, any big retailer can sell you that cheap bottle of wine. But at Julio's, it's always been about service, selection, and knowledge. Whether it's that perfect dinner wine, a hard-to-find whiskey, or that beautiful craft brew, Julio's has it all in our massive selection. Along with our in-house tobacco shop, our specialty food items, and over 300 hot sauces. And if you don't have our Julio's Liquors VIP app, you're missing out on tastings, flash sales, and events. At Julio's Liquors, it's all about getting you what you want. No pressure, no commission, ever. Julio's Liquors, Route 9 East in the Westboro Shopping Center. Service, selection, and knowledge.
Chris Thompson here, station manager at WCRN. I need salespeople. If you're retired or a stay-at-home mom looking to make a few extra dollars, this opportunity is perfect for you. Work part-time, set your own schedule. It's fun. We provide the training you need to succeed. The only thing better than listening to Howie Carr is selling Howie Carr. If you're outgoing, not afraid to learn new things, and would like to earn some extra money, call me at 508-870-5803, extension 222. Stop making money selling radio.
WCRN is an equal opportunity employer.
Beauty's biggest event is here, when my favorite brands are half off at Ulta Beauty. I'm checking out the beauty steals and marking my calendar. I see blushes, brighteners, and brushes, primers, powders, and pencils, cleansers, and lip collections.
At Ulta Beauty's 21 Days of Beauty, every day is a new chance to get up to 50% off our most loved brands like Urban Decay, Tarte, and more. Hurry in to seize the beauty steals before the event ends September 23rd. Ulta Beauty, all things beauty, all in one place.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, so welcome back to the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from AM, we'll try that again, AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, we're live streaming on the TuneIn app as well as my social media platforms. You can always find it at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. Okay, so the other comment that we had going on here, the president was asked about monkeypox. Now, this has sprung up, and I don't know if this is supposed to be the new threat. However, the president was playing this down and saying it's not a big concern, right? So he kind of sought to calm the concerns about these cases of monkeypox that have been identified in Europe, in the United States, saying it did not see the need to institute strict quarantine measures. He was speaking in Tokyo. He said that, maybe the fears and the anxiety that we have from COVID-19 is making people maybe jump to the gun on things here, which is interesting because the first words coming out about monkeypox, I don't know why that makes me giggle when I say monkeypox, but it's rare. And now I'm watching news this morning, and they're tracing this back. Now, our CDC has an investigative team, right? The best in the world at investigating the source of and the spread of diseases and viruses.
You got
This is
Ken
what
from
they
Bolton
do.
on the line.
They're very well educated on this. They're very well equipped for this. And somehow they're tying this to parties, two parties in Europe, mainly among gay and bisexual men. They're identifying this in that this virus, which, by the way, the smallpox vaccine is very close to it. It's something that as the doctors explain, you can kind of do some modification here and let it work for it. And the symptoms you're looking for is swelled lymph nodes and kind of flu-like symptoms, and then actually that very distinct rash that the monkeypox will give you. But the difference here is this is a virus that can only be transmitted with extended, very close proximity, and it usually requires close enough contact that you exchange bodily fluid, saliva, etc. So it's not airborne. It's not something that can spread very easily. And the president saying monkeypox is rarely identified outside of Africa, but there were 80 confirmed cases worldwide, including 2 in the United States, 50 suspected, and another 50 suspected. Yesterday, one presumptive case of monkeypox also was being investigated in Broward County in South Florida, which state health officials said appeared to be related to international travel. So like usually everything, right? We have constant flow of air traffic from Europe to the United States. So anything that is hitting Europe will inevitably, it's going to have to or will make its way to the United States. There's just too much traffic going on. And we certainly can't shut that down at whim, can we? We don't do that. Or we find out what happens when we do that and how that ripples through the world economic stage as well. 508-871-7000. Jazz, we have a phone call. Let's go to the phones.
Yep, Ken's on the line.
Ken. Welcome, Ken. What's on your mind today?
Good afternoon, Joe. Your first topic, and as we've had in the past.
That should be better.
Okay. Go ahead, Ken. I think we got it fixed.
All righty. Yep. I think that's better.
Awesome.
No, I still got it, but I'll try to talk through it.
Okay.
On the Taiwan issue, this is just another example of where we're headed.
I lost Ken, so I don't know.
I got to do it with
Can you hear me, Joe?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
As you remember, I made a prediction that the president, at any time after July 1st, could be ousted by his own party.
Yeah.
And the way he's reacting, particularly towards Taiwan, has got to be making them like, there.
You mean that his comments about Taiwan and our defending them is causing the Democratic Party to be concerned with that more so?
Oh, absolutely, because every day they're sinking in holes and they're frightened to death that there's going to be carnage in November.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, what I was going to also get to is the situation with the baby formula. And I'll get to it. But the point I'm making is you're seeing the legacy media, all right, the MSNBCs and CNNs and ABC and NBC, et cetera, taking a very stern stand against Joe Biden and the policies, something you never thought you'd really see. And I don't think they would have done that in the beginning of the certainly not during a campaign. They didn't do it. We saw just how much they bent over backwards to squelch anything that might have negatively impacted the Biden campaign. We saw them try to give him a pass in the very beginning, but it seems as though the memo has gone out here, Ken, that we don't need him anymore. He served the purpose that we needed him to serve, and he's not really up to the job. So let's start making that be known. We're going to allow this to get out there now. It seems that way.
So I think it's even deeper. Everybody's in self survival mode. Everybody for themselves.
Yes, and that includes, by the way, a lot of the people involved with the Hillary Clinton Russian hoax collusion and so forth, because we see them starting to take positions to protect themselves at this point and offer up some info. We also, we've seen a mass exodus from the vice president's office as well, because there's that internal strife that we have going on there.
Joe, we had to the testimony Friday, effectively a scandal far bigger than even Watergate.
Yes. Again, I'm going to get to that with Robbie Mook, the campaign manager, in his open court statement. We're going to get into all that. But getting back to the Joe Biden, who's really in charge issue, and that's where I'm coming from is we constantly seem to have, and there's three major ones, right, since August, but it almost seems once or twice a week that the press office is cleaning up what he said, right? It's been, I think, 130 days or something since he's had like a one-on or, with the media, any direct, like official interaction with the media. And at this point in presidencies, Barack Obama had 100 and something, and Trump had like 95. I mean, there was serious communication going on between former presidents, right? They're continuing to keep Joe Biden quiet. On top of everything else, we've just had 8 weeks, right? The first time that there's been an 8-week streak that the market's been down. And as of this week, the Dow is down 3%, S&P 3%, NASDAQ 4%. And that hasn't happened for 1923, almost 100 years. And we have the new press secretary saying, well, we're going to policy, we don't pay, meaning the president of the United States, that office, we don't pay attention to those things. The office of the presidency doesn't pay attention to the stock market. They don't follow it. That's concerning. How do you think
Joe,
his termination will come? Do you think he'll step down, or do you think he's going to get removed?
Well, his party will demand he steps down.
So you think they'll pressure him to step down?
Oh, absolutely.
They'll do what the GOP did with Nixon. They'll go up and have a
That's
talk.
the only
with
way
him.
it happens.
Yeah. And do you think that Joe will say, because of medical reasons, health reasons, I'm going to step down and let Kamala Harris ascend to the presidency? Let's not forget who we end up in the Oval.
Yeah, right. But bingo, that is exactly what he has to do. Harris becomes president, and Obama becomes vice president.
Yeah, I know you're married to that. Yeah, I still don't think that's the scenario.
Well, you have a Democratic House and Senate, and they can appoint Obama vice president, and it had to be effective in January.
Yeah, I still think it would end up in front of the Supreme Court. You feel the court would allow it. I think he's run his course as president, and I don't think it would be allowed to happen. But I understand what you're saying.
The Supreme Court, Joe, the Supreme Court vote would be 9-0 in favor.
2 minutes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I get it. I just don't believe it would happen. But I got to hold you there. We're running out of time. Thanks for the call, Ken. All right, so the stock market, folks, again, 8 weeks down, hasn't happened for nearly 100 years. That's also concerning. When we come back on the other side, I want to talk a little bit about this Sussman trial. We're into the second week of this trial going on, and there's been some statements made, and Ken actually alluded to it, that there's comments being made and evidence coming forth that shows that this is so much deeper and larger and more sinister than any of us might have thought in the beginning. That might have thought, some of us. I think that some of us who thought it was as terrible as it is and as bad as it is all along. But I think now the country is going to learn, and the media is going to eventually have to pay attention to it. They can't continue to bury this. All right, this will wrap up the first half of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Stick with us. We'll be back on the other side, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We're looking okay this afternoon. We're going to keep it partly sunny and a lot more comfortable than it was over the weekend. Highs in the low to mid 70s today. At the beaches, it's going to be a little bit cooler. And again, mix of sun and clouds, low humidity. It's looking great for trying to get outside. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Those things we most cherish are all put at risk through the improper disposal of mercury in everyday items. Fluorescent lamps, thermometers, thermostats all contain mercury. Mercury Recovery Program is designed to assist your community in the safe disposal of this heavy metal. For more information about where to dispose of these products, contact your local Board of Health, Department of Public Works, or visit our website at keepmercuryfromrising.org. Working together, we can keep our environment safe.
Attention all contractors. The Massachusetts Mercury Management Act makes it illegal to improperly dispose of old thermostats in the trash. They contain mercury that can be harmful to human health and the environment. Building and HVAC contractors, plumbers, and electricians, please properly dispose of all mercury thermostats. Contact your local health or public works department for information on where to safely dispose of thermostats in your community. Visit online, keepmercuryfromrising.org for details. Brought to you by Win Waste Innovations. Performance for the planet.
Talk about real estate, mortgages, and the economy on the Drew Mortgage Show, weekdays at noon on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN.
Join us at the corner of fresh and familiar. North Star Music, New England hits that made radio great. Evenings at 7 on Full Service Radio, WCRN.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, we're live streaming on the TuneIn app. You can take us anywhere, punch in WCRN. Do me a favor, hit that like button, and we're good to go. All right, so let's do the baby formula first. I just want to get this out of the way here. The White House is taking a victory lap because there's 70,000 pounds of baby formula, medical grade formula, coming on a flight from Europe. The first one landed, many more are coming, they say. But this flight of 70,000 pounds, by the way, is only 15% of the overall volume for a week here in the United States. Now, the fact that they're taking a victory lap for this, when the Biden administration knew months ago, they knew the FDA, when they shut down that Abbott plant, they knew that it was 40% of the market share, but made absolutely no contingency plan whatsoever. Made no arrangements or additional plans. And this just reminds me of them, thinking we're begging for oil from Venezuela, the Middle East, right? Because we're not producing enough oil for ourselves, and we can. This is not like we don't have the ability. It's not like we don't have the oil in our ground. It's not like we weren't doing it, because we were doing it in the previous administration. We were energy independent. We were exporting energy, oil, gas. And now we have to beg, and they're not even taking the guys, phone calls. So to have to see our United States military flying baby formula, to me, that's slightly embarrassing. Our priorities are out of whack. The White House is concerned with climate change, continually stirring up racism where it doesn't exist. The political correctness, pronouns, these are things that, quite frankly, aren't the kitchen table concerns that are happening right now. Because the kitchen table discussions that are going on in America today is about what it took to fill the gas tank up in the minivan, in the second vehicle, because it's a two working family, right? Both parents are at work or have to work. They have to fill up two vehicles. They have to, and it will come quickly. I know it's warm and sunny out, but fall will hit us very quickly, as it always does in New England. And people are going to be faced with filling their oil tanks for the winter. I'd suggest if you're empty, maybe you want to fill it now, because there's discussion about gas going to possibly $10 a gallon. And that is in heating oil, which is basically diesel, which is always above the cost of gasoline. Heating oil could very easily be in the $10 to $12 range come winter. So fill it now. I know it's a tough bullet to bite right now, a tough pill to swallow, whatever cliche you want to use. I would do it if I was still in a house that had an oil tank. I'm an electric conduit that runs on electricity. So look at that bill. So that's the kitchen table discussion going on. I think the White House priorities are out of whack here, folks. And having to have military flights bring baby formula from Europe is about as effective and smart as releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That's not what that's there for. And President Trump filled that up. He topped off those reserves when we were at $30 a barrel. Now we would have to replace that oil that we're letting out of that reserve at the 100 plus a barrel. Plus, it doesn't accomplish anything. It's not even a Band-Aid. It's not what it was meant to be, and it has no real effect. When they release massive amounts of oil from the reserve, it equals a couple of days. It's not solving the problem. It's barely addressing the symptom. To address that problem, as simple and cliche as it may sound, is you need to drill. You need to open up the pipeline, stop the games with the leasing contracts, clear the bureaucracy, because even when it's done, there's ramp up time, and you're asking companies to commit to billions, if not trillions of dollars into research and drilling. And if you're in a hostile environment towards them, and we're in an administration, and the head of that administration, Joe Biden, has repeatedly said that he will eliminate fossil fuels. Remember the campaign trail, leaning down and talking to that little girl and saying, listen to me, look at basically a George Bush read my lips scenario, that there'll be no fossil fuel. So you have an administration that is anti your business. But for political reasons, they're blaming you for not putting everything on the line and drill on these leases when any one of several government agencies can shut you down at any given point. Not fair. Not fair at all. That just is a horrible thing to have to say. All right, folks, 508-871-7000. I want to shift to politics a little bit because as we talked about earlier, the Hillary Clinton saga, it continues here. Durham continues steadfast and steadily going, methodically going ahead. In Sussman, we're entering week 2 of the trial, Michael Sussman. We know that he and what he initially got him on here is that he lied to the FBI. With that whole communication to the FBI, I have information that's all made up. And he tells them, and this is how he gets the meeting. I'm not working for anyone. This isn't on behalf of anyone. This is just information I'm in possession of, and I think you should know. And that, according to the FBI, is the only reason that they took the meeting. And that's where he hands them the whole Russian bull, right, and the bank and connection, which is all made up. But what's interesting is this Robbie Mook, who was Clinton's campaign manager, says on the chair, in open court, on the record, that she knew everything and signed off and approved the plan here. So he's indicted her. He has looped her in because it is on statement, right? It's in the court records. He's under oath when he says this. Now, Trump has let out a comment on this. He reacts to the Sussman trial testimony, and he says, and this makes sense, folks. He says, for 3 years, I had to fight her off and fight those crooked people off. And he did. And the media laughed at him and mocked him when he said what was going on, which all turned out to be true. He went on to say, you'll never get your reputation fully back. Where do I get my reputation back? I know that you might think that Trump is Teflon and the guy has no feelings and he doesn't pay any attention to this, but you cannot be under assault 24/7 for years. You cannot have these people hurling horrible accusations at you about your character and your integrity, your ability, even your health, and it's not true. It's not true. And when your own government participates in the frame job, in the setup, and you still love this country, that says a lot more about his character than it does hers. And he has a point. Where does he get his reputation back? Because they've destroyed him. And he's gone on and on, right? Now, Robbie Mook said under oath on the stand, I discussed it with Hillary as well. I don't remember the substance of the conversation, but notionally, the discussion was, hey, we have this and we want to share it with a reporter. She agreed. So he has put Hillary in the room in a discussion. They tell her the scam that they want to pull, that they want to share this with a reporter. We know how that all works by now. They make it up. They tell the FBI. They leak it to the reporter. The story breaks. The FBI turns around, not the whole FBI, the crooked members of the FBI, put together a file including the stories that they leaked to corroborate what they bring to the FISA court to illegally obtain FISA warrants to then listen into Trump Towers, Trump campaign offices, and this is the part that really has to get you folks, is the office of the presidency, the office of the president. Those offices belong to the office of the president. They don't belong to Trump. And the fact that they lied to, manipulated the FISA court, and you have to wonder a little bit about how anxious they were to see this happen, or can the FISA court, the judges entrusted with such an important role in our nation's defense and well-being, can they really be that gullible? Are they in on this? How does that happen? But they put it out there, leaked it to the reporter. We know how this happened, how they used it all to do this. And the fact that they were able to spy on the office of the president, that is treason, nothing short of it. Absolutely nothing short of it. Somebody or some persons have got to go to, not jail, they have got to go to prison. If it's been done once, and Trump would bring this up, if they do it to me, imagine what they can do to you. And you have to think about that. Absolutely. All right, folks, we've got to take the last break for the fourth and final segment. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We'll be back on the other side, folks. Stick with us. 508-871-7000. Back in a moment.
There's no better way to celebrate beautiful weather than cruising the great outdoors. Hi, I'm Paul Kowalas, president of Linders. We offer the area's largest selection of late model, certified pre-owned vehicles, most still under factory warranty.
Like a 2018 Cadillac CTS luxury all-wheel drive with just 23,000 miles for only $35,995.
Celebrate the arrival of spring with a quality pre-owned vehicle from Linders on Granite Street in Worcester. Linders.com.
Linders, the intelligent alternative.
Hey everybody, Ryan Maloney here from It's the Liquor Talking, letting you know that you can hear us Saturday mornings at 11, but also at our new time, weeknights, right after Howie Carr at 7 p.m. It doesn't stop there. Randall and I are going to stick around and host North Star Music after the show. So join us for New England's only show about wine and spirits, and then pour yourself a glass of your favorite adult beverage. Enjoy Randall and I as we listen to your favorite music on the North Star.
Expert Agents Realty is a family-owned real estate firm with offices in 2 locations, Northborough and East Longmeadow. For 25 years, Mark Toomey, the owner-broker of Expert Agents Realty, has focused on providing buyer and seller clients the highest level of service in the industry. A licensed real estate broker, Mark has sold hundreds and hundreds of properties for clients in the Metro West and Worcester County areas, specializing in residential sales, single-family condominiums, multifamily homes, and land. Working with all types of buyers and sellers, including first-time buyers, retirees, investors, and builders. Being a full-service broker means handling every aspect of the buying and selling process, working with a team of local lenders, attorneys, and other industry professionals to help ensure a smooth buying and selling process. Call Mark today at 508-393-3383 and put the power of experience to work for you in your search for a new home.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back for the fourth and final segment of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, AM 830, WCRN, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So the Pennsylvania Senate primary on the GOP side, guys, it's still being counted. This is just over 1,000 votes separating them. Now we got the provisional ballots that have come in. There was a group of people, some kind of committee sworn in to examine them. Now, it was cut and dry because they simply, these ballots that show up without any postmark on it for date, which, by the way, where do they come from if they don't have a postmark? Isn't that like the simplest question you ask when that should be answered? Well, if it doesn't have a postmark date on it, how'd they get here? Where'd they show up from? So the rule was if they didn't have the date and they weren't postmarked by the election day, they weren't counted. And that's, again, we're dealing with the most common sense of common sense, folks. If it was mailed and it is stamped by the United States Post Office after the election, it was clearly mailed, which either means somebody then decided, oh, I better vote because my guy's losing, or somebody decided, let's mail a bunch of ballots in because our guy's behind. Whatever the reason, no. I've said this a million times and I'll continue to say it. Election days are not a surprise. They're not sprung on us, folks. We know exactly when they're happening. And you have the responsibility to either get there by that day, on that day, or, as everyone does, early voting. So you have ample chance to get to your local clerk's office or what have you and vote, or request the ballot, not these mass mailing. You request the ballot and you vote. And if you can't arrange that and do that by the election day, the end of the voting period, then you didn't vote in this election. It's that simple. But now you have a judge that laid down a ruling that they can be or have to be counted. So now this group on the Dr. Oz campaign, McCormick and Oz, are waiting for instructions from the Secretary of State as to what they're going to do with this. Meanwhile, the recount will automatically kick in because if it's under half a point, that's the way it is in Pennsylvania. It's an automatic recount and it's going to kick in. And it has to be done by the 7th, which means we wouldn't know the results until the 8th. So we're not close to that. Okay. But now we have primaries tomorrow. It starts again, right? It's Tuesday. Several primaries. Georgia, one of them. And Georgia Secretary of State, the GOP primary there, is saying that it could hinge on the voter knowledge of Trump's endorsement. So you've got Kemp and Perdue. They're facing off there. You got Stacey Abrams with no primary, and she's going to be the Democratic candidate in the general. That's the way that works. So she's already set. Now, the problem here is over the weekend, and she's going to get some flack for this. She was speaking at an event for Democrats and her people. Somebody recorded the audio. And her quote there is she saying, I'm running for governor because I know that we have to have a conversation about who we are in this state and what we want for each other and from each other. And I'm tired of hearing about how we're the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. That's her quote. We are the worst state in the country to live. Now, she's saying this, folks. Well, Georgia is getting such an influx of people actually transplanting there and moving there, as well as businesses. Even Hollywood loves to shoot shows and movies in Georgia. And you got people like Tyler Perry that has put up these $100 million studios and so forth. And everybody's thinking and saying, what are you talking about? Georgia's a great state to live in, and we got great business going on. So they're going to have to deal with that. So you've got the situation where you've got these undecided voters. In the endorsement from Donald Trump, could tip the results in tomorrow's elections for Secretary of State, according to the polls. Researchers with Survey USA found that 60% of those planning to vote in the Democratic primary for Secretary of State still hadn't made up their minds. Abrams running for governor. So a clear leader was almost impossible to pick there. Results from two polls analyzing the Republicans' race also conflicted, right? Because according to a poll conducted back in April, it suggests that the incumbent, that's Brad Raffensperger, remember his name? Because he was a big role in the 2020 election, was ahead with 30% of the vote. In second place was Congressman Jody Hice with 20%, and 9% of the remaining voters were split equally among these other two candidates. But with 40% of the voters still undecided, the final result could swing in any direction. And a poll suggests Hice was ahead in the Republican contest with about 30.3% of the vote. And Raffensperger trailed with 22.7%. Now, one poll seemed to confirm what's been illustrated by primary contests around the country. The endorsement of former President Donald Trump could change everything in a race, but only if voters actually know about the endorsement. Because when respondents in the April 12th study learned that Trump endorsed Hice, his lead doubled to 60%. Hice has joined Trump in alleging that the 2020 election results were swayed by widespread fraud, especially in Georgia. Raffensperger's office oversees the election, so that's made him a target for criticism from Trump and, of course, Trump supporters. And Trump has repeatedly complained that Raffensperger didn't do enough to investigate allegations of voter fraud in the 2020 elections. The result of that election removed Trump as president, installed Joe Biden in the White House, hence his endorsement for Hice. Now, the gubernatorial endorsements are kind of pitting Trump against Pence. Because again, okay, we have a call and we're running against time, so let me go quickly to the phones. John wants to jump on. John, welcome to the conversation. Oh, off air. You want to do that's fine. All right, then we'll wait till that. Sorry about that, Jazz. Thank you. So again, the gubernatorial endorsements are kind of pitting Trump against Pence because of who they're supporting. Now we've got the Senate and the balance. It's a 50-50, but the VP as president will break it. So it's actually technically the Senate. The Democrats have the Senate, right? But Georgia voters are going to choose tomorrow which Republican will face Stacey Abrams. And to avoid a June 21 primary runoff in the gubernatorial race, one candidate in the field of five must receive more than 50% of the vote. That's how they do it in Georgia, right? They got that rank voter thing going on, rank vote choice. I don't like that concept. I understand why people would like to put it in because it changes how elections have been done forever. And I get it because when you think about it, we've had members of Congress, right, who, got there because in Massachusetts, if you win the Democratic primary, it's kind of like you're in. And when you have a 7, 8, 9-way primary and you can muster up 23, 24% of the vote, you win. But does that really mean that you're the best candidate for the job, for the position? Does it really mean that? So now, despite all the accusations of voter suppression in Georgia, we have a record high early voting going on. Georgians also will cast ballots tomorrow to narrow the field of candidates in all kinds of primary contests across the state. But the general election for top finishers is scheduled for November 8th. And the thing about this is, with the ranked choice voting, you got to get 50% to move forward. If you get 49%, and everybody else, it's divided among 3 or 4 other candidates kind of equally, you still don't go to the general. They drop off the lowest one and redo this. That's ranked ranked choice voting. I don't know if I like it. It's too confusing to people, and it can absolutely change what normally would have been the results. Now, Republican races in Georgia for governor and secretary of state, as I said, drew a lot of attention nationwide because it really is speaking to Trump's endorsement a lot. And Trump has insisted that Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger didn't do enough to investigate all those allegations. So he's endorsing their opponents. And Pence is showing up for the other guy. You see what's happening there? Because if Trump comes forward to run in 2024, I personally think, unless something changes, that he is. Have you seen his interviews? Have you seen the way he has talked? All about, he can't do it because of campaign laws and so forth. That's the case. Look, this actually wraps up this Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, so I'm going to have to break it here. I'll be back Wednesday afternoon at 1, of course, Thursday morning for Political Thursday with Jerry Doherty. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Don't forget to follow me at social media at Joe Mangi Show and online at tjmshow.com. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Thank you very much. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Out.